Cars already on their green flag lap ahead of our third and final race of the weekend for the Michelin Ginetta Junior Championship. We've had two sensational races so far. High hopes for this third one of the weekend to provide more of the same entertainment. We've had two race wins already for Freddie Slater, continues this fantastic run on his way to now an even more increased championship lead, and he starts this third and final race of the weekend from pole position alongside his R-Racing teammate Mikey Porter. The grid for this one is the result from race number 2, so if you missed that race earlier on, this is the order in which they finished. Finn Harrison will start third for Assetto Racing, Hugo Schwarzer up there in fourth position, and then we've got Charlie Hart and Chase Fernandez, who was really unlucky in that early race to miss out on a podium finish. Mackenzie Douglas lines up 7th in his Fox Motorsport car, then Reza Saburathan, who came from the back of the grid in race number 2, will start 8th. Alicia Palmovsky's had a difficult weekend. She'll be 9th on the grid alongside American driver Luca Hopkinson, and then row number 6 for Adi Robinson and Tom Spragg in the number 16 car. Row 7 for Henry Jocelyn. Freddie Allen lines up alongside him. Row 8, the penultimate row of the grid, is where you find Holly Mile and Felix Livesey. And then right at the back, we will have Harry Moss all by himself on the 17th row of the grid, on the 9th row of the grid, 17th place on the grid. So, race victories so far for Freddie Slater. He has now then broken the record for most career Ginetta Junior victories, now standing at 13 wins for the season. And 1 third place finish as well. He has only been off the podium once all year, that back at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit in that massively rain-affected race back at the Silverstone 500 weekend, where we ran, I think, 2 laps and then red flagged it. So Freddie Slater didn't really have time to get to the front of the pack then, but really the rest of the season he's been almost unstoppable, almost being the operative word, because we have had a win for Hugo Schwarzer, 2 wins for Chase Fernandez, and a win for Leo Robinson as well. So other drivers have the potential to win, definitely. We still haven't seen, for example, the likes of Mikey Porter or Charlie Hart win a race. Reza Saburathan hasn't won a race yet. Finn Harrison also has been looking for his first victory as well, and he will be starting 3rd on the grid, having made a late charge through into the podium places in race number 2 earlier on. So there are other drivers who are capable of taking the fight to Freddie Slater. It's just a case of being there at the end of the race. That's what they're struggling with. They can race against him in the mid-part, but then once it all gets down to business at the end of the race, he just seems to have this ability to position himself where he needs to be to get to that checkered flag first. He will line up then in the R-Racing car on the left as we look at it, the right-hand side of the grid as the drivers look. The blue highlights on Slater's car, the green on Mikey Porter's, and then the first of the 2 Assetto Racing cars is the number 38 of Finn Harrison. Big crowd on hand. It is a bit more overcast here than it has been earlier on in the day, though, so I don't think there's any immediate threat of rain, but there may be a slight concern as we get later on into the day. So, Freddie Slater then, pole position for the third and final race of the weekend. The grid is formed. I think we're just waiting for the 5-second board to be held aloft, which happens now. And Mikey Porter up alongside Freddie Slater. Can he beat him into the first corner, as Chase Fernandez very nearly did in the race earlier on today? Red lights go on, red lights go off. Now we are away and racing for the final time, and it is a good start made by Mikey Porter from the outside of row number 1, but not really stealing much of a march against his teammate. 2 by 2, they run down the pit straight, and Hugo Schwarzer ducking in line behind the number 38 car of Finn Harrison, who briefly peeks to the inside of Freddie Slater into riches. It's going to be once again Freddie who leads them through. Good start made by Chase Fernandez. Look up alongside Hugo Schwarzer as they head towards the Wilson hairpin. Charlie Hart ducking and diving around. Can't choose which line to go with. It is Slater who leads. It is side by side for second. Finn Harrison goes through. And it is going to be, that's Holly Mile with a spin at the first corner. It is going to be, Finn Harrison second, Porter third, Schwarzer and Fernandez debating fourth. I think Chase Fernandez got the better of him there. With the exception of Holly Mile, they're all safely through the first few corners. Down the hill they come, and Freddie Slater trying to make good his escape. R-Racing ahead of Assetto, ahead of R-Racing, ahead of Assetto, ahead of 2 Elite Motorsport cars, the first of whom was Hugo Schwarzer, trying to get on the inside of Chase Fernandez there into Agostini. Not quite able to do so. Felix Livesey out wide, almost loses it. I noticed that he had, I think, a little bit of damage on the left front corner as well, which may have had something to do with Holly Mile's rotation at turn 1. Through Oggies then up over the curbs. Mackenzie Douglas up the inside of Tom Spragg. That's a move made for, I think, 10th position, and Spragg dips 2 wheels on the dirt. Luca Hopkinson almost got his nose up the inside there. As they head down the Bentley Straight, that slipstream starts to bunch them all together again, but Freddie Slater starting to break away already, actually. He has got a very healthy lead over Finn Harrison, second place. Finn being pushed along slightly there by Mikey Porter, who for the time being will be willing to work with the Assetto driver. Well, or is he? He's forcing him to defend actually through Nelson. Tries to nip up the inside, has nipped up the inside, I think, on the run to the bomb hole. Chase Fernandez in that group as well. They're in danger of letting Slater get away here, and they've got to be mindful of that. Porter into second, and here comes Chase Fernandez up the inside as well. Sideways on the dirty side of the road for Finn Harrison there. Ducks back in line behind his teammates, so all of that shuffling, which is still ongoing. Look, Hugo Schwarzer battling with Charlie Hart and Reza Samurathan, that was the 78 car around the outside, so he's gained some good ground, whereas Hugo Schwarzer has lost out in the middle part of that lap. All of this sorting out that's going on for second on back, though, has allowed Freddie Slater to pull a lead after just the one lap of 1.7 seconds over the rest of the pack, so there's no doubt about it. They're going to have to work together now if they're to have any chance of catching him, but Chase Fernandez is applying the pressure here to Mikey Porter. Porter succumbing to that pressure, maybe drifted out wide over the curbs, but Chase Fernandez, again a smart driver, chooses not to attack into the hairpin. Everyone else behind is attacking though. Alicia Palmowski up the inside of Tom Spragg, bringing with her Henry Jocelyn, who gets into him, and around goes Jocelyn, and others scatter onto the grass to avoid Luca Hopkinson and A.D. Robinson, that was bouncing across the dirt, and well, that was just a lot of cars all trying to fit into the same place, and unfortunately it was Henry Jocelyn who came out the worst. Selects first gear, gets going again, but he will fall to the back of the field, well, possibly still in front of Holly Mile, who lost about 30 seconds or so from that spin at the first corner. So lead pack making its way through. Another 2/10 gained in sector 1 there by Freddie Slater, as another car runs wide in the background. That was A.D. Robinson again. Definitely in danger of getting pinged for exceeding track limits if he keeps that sort of thing going. So yeah, Porter and Fernandez. Fernandez, I think, is a bit quicker than Mikey Porter this weekend, has been so far, but is Chase going to risk losing them time by attacking Mikey, or does he simply try and work with him? At the moment, they're gapping the cars behind, so I think there's an argument to say just stay where you are, but if Chase thinks he's that much quicker that he can drag them up to the race leader on his own, then he might choose to make the move. Stays in the wheel tracks, though, of the second place man for now. Here's the replay of what happens to Jocelyn up the inside of Spragg. The two teammates lean on each other, and I think in fairness, Jocelyn was trying to stay off Tom Spragg, had it fully cranked to the right, and that meant that when he had a little tap, it was very unsettled and easily went around. And that time around in the second sector, Chase Fernandez 3/10 quicker than Freddie Slater, the leader, so this is working now, these two in second and third, just sort of running single file, using that slipstream to try and benefit the pair of them. Saw in the earlier race that if you're patient in these races, the races can come back to you if the lead group starts to battle. Right now there isn't a lead group, there is a lead driver, Freddie Slater, then there's a lot of empty racetrack before you get to Mikey Porter and Chase Fernandez, second and third. Finn Harrison here fourth with Charlie Hart giving him some assistance down the pit straight. And through Riches they'll go. All staying single file for now, but Charlie Hart really is pushing Harrison through that first turn. Reza Samurathan up with them as well now. Reza might try and get up the inside here. Hart moves across to cover and turns that then into an overtake. He's being pushed into the corner by Samurathan, who had it all locked up trying to avoid major contact. He goes past Harrison too. Mackenzie Douglas gets alongside as Finn bounces across the grass. And is he going to beat Douglas into the left-hander at Palmer? I think he will. Now Douglas has to watch his mirrors because Hugo Schwarzer is looking up the inside, getting, again, a bit of a bump maybe from his teammate Alicia Palmowski, but she's not quite close enough to do that effectively, dropping down the hill. Douglas defends, Palmowski to the outside of Schwarzer and will gain a place at least, might gain two if Mackenzie Douglas leaves her space on the exit, which he doesn't. Levers her aside, and over the curb she goes. Took a little bit of time as a result. The left-hander at Hamilton down onto the brakes at Oggies. Palmowski enjoying some typical Ginetta Junior racing here, really. Attacking, defending, cars all around her. Very exciting to watch, but a tad stressful to be involved in. Drivers want to try and attack the car ahead, but they know that if they go for a move and it doesn't work, then they could be vulnerable to attack them from the car behind. Of course, there is one man for whom that's not the case, and that is Freddie Slater, with no one to attack and no one to defend from for the time being. Set the fastest lap last time around, a 2:21.235. It was a couple of hundredths faster than Mikey Porter in second place, who still has Chase Fernandez working with him. If nothing else, they're continuing to gap the fourth-placed group, but they're not really making any inroads into the race leader, are they? The first sector on this lap, they were 0.3 slower than him. The second sector, a 1/10.5 faster. But they need more than that. Through onto the pit straight they go. And Freddie Slater leading the way down towards Rich's corner. There is the second place pairing, and again, almost identical lap times, a 2:21.1, a 2:21.2, 2:21.2, the lap times for the top three respectively. There's Charlie Hart, fourth position. Reza Samurathan, he's really turned his weekend around here. Started on, hello, that is Chase Fernandez on the inside of Mikey Porter. Mikey had a moment, I think, going through Rich's, and so Fernandez leapt at the opportunity to get up the inside. Now, again, if Mikey is sensible, he won't fight this now. He'll be content to work with Chase in the same way Chase has been working with him, because that overtake probably didn't cost them too much time. If he latches onto Fernandez, Fernandez might be fractionally the quicker of the two. Down the brakes, down the gears into Agostini. Fernandez, can he do anything about the lead? We've still got 12 minutes to go in this race, so it's not over yet. As we saw in the earlier race, that lead gap can be eradicated. Oh, well, that's Alicia Palmoski off the road. Alicia's had a nightmare of a weekend. She was 10th. I think that's dropped her down into at least 12th, maybe 13th with that little moment. But Alicia's been very hot and cold this year. When she's good, she's very good. But on those off weekends, struggling a little bit to get up there inside the top 10, and a bit like that here at Snetterton. It is a technically demanding circuit, track that it can be very frustrating when you're just missing something on the setup, something on ultimate top speed or performance around a lap. It can be a very frustrating kind of track because it's a long lap, and you only have to be a fraction off at every corner, and you're suddenly dropping a second or more per lap, and that's quite a frustration really, when we could then go to Cadwell Park next time out, and the very same drivers could be up there on front-running pace. So Hugo Schwarzer ahead of Finn Harrison here. This is for 6th position. Second place pairing. One of the sector times saying this time they were half a second slower than Freddie in sector 1, so that overtake did cost them a bit of time. In sector 2, another couple of tenths slower. So Fernandez not really bridging this gap at the moment. Across the line goes the Hart-Samurathan battle. Been a fairly consistent weekend so far for Charlie Hart, whose father Chris is racing in British GT again this weekend. Charlie was 6th in race 1, 5th in race 2, he's 4th in race 3, so there's a bit of a pattern emerging there. And they'll wind their way through the slowest corner on the track there at Agostini. Gap between the two of them couldn't be much less, but again, just biding their time. I think we've seen from the earlier two races, being in the lead of your group even at this stage of the race isn't all that significant really. It's where you position yourself in those final couple of laps that can really make the decisive difference. Hart just moving a little bit to cover through the left-hand hairpin at Agostini there. Through Hamilton, way wide over the curb there. Charlie Hart, haven't seen yet, touch wood, any notification of track limits warnings in this third and final race of the weekend, so drivers may be learning a little bit now where they can get away with it, where they can't get away with it, or perhaps just learning not to do it at all. Out onto that back straight there in the leading group, 2.4 seconds the lead for Slater. Gone up again in that first sector by a tenth or so. Sector 2. Now sector 2, Chase Fernandez half a second quicker, and that is his teammate Finn Harrison, and that looks like, well, it's a fairly major mechanical issue. Is that oil dropping down out of the bottom of the car? I think it might be. So that is an engine that's gone bang for Finn Harrison. He pulls to the side of the road, thankfully well out of the way. But that is a significant mechanical failure. And as they make their way towards the end of the lap, that takes him out of that second place group. That's a real shame for Finn, who had a decent weekend going there. But Chase Fernandez, half a second quicker than the leader in Sector 2. If he can get within a second or so, he'll start to pick up that slipstream. He was a couple of tenths quicker that time, 2 seconds the margin. He needs a little bit more if he's going to be able to really pick up that slipstream. But you will find that you take a couple of tenths of a second every lap, then you get within slipstreaming range, and suddenly you're taking a second a lap out of somebody. Toe is worth so much in these Ginetta G40s, especially the lower horsepower versions that we race here, the restricted engines in junior racing, compared to the GT5 challenge cars that we'll see racing a little bit later on. So through Palmer goes the 4th, 5th, 6th placed scrap, Hart, Smurthen and Schwarzer. And is Smurthen going to have a go? Charlie Hart thinks that he might. Just covers that inside line. He's choosing not to commit, although a mistake there for Hart. There may be reduced horsepower, these cars, but still enough. Oh, hello, red flag. We have got a red flag. Now, what's this all about? The only car that I've noticed we've lost was Finn Harrison.
Clear that car for the
it is in a relatively precarious position, I suppose, down at the end of the Bentley Straight. I'm surprised if that caused a red flag on its own. So I think maybe the concern is that there is oil down from that car, and they don't want to risk the entire pack descending upon that part of the circuit on the final lap and slipping off the road. So slightly bizarre end to the race, but the race stopped anyway, and well, Freddie Slater's won again. He's won a 14th race now of 2023. In slightly subdued fashion, maybe, but just as Chase Fernandez was starting to ask some questions of him as well, and taking a little bit of time out of the race leader. It's going to be, unfortunately, only a second place finish for Chase, but some more good points in the bag. Championship-wise, coming into that race, it was Schwarzer second, Porter third, and then pretty close between Hart and Samurthan, about 17 points between them, 4th and 5th. Alicia Palmowski 6th, Chase Fernandez 7th. So Fernandez will likely move ahead of Palmowski now into 6th in the championship, but that's probably the only major difference in the points. Now, there is a red flag, but not a single driver has come into the pit lane. Now, surely they don't think there's going to be I suppose 7 minutes to go. They could restart it, I guess. We are not quite 2/3 of the way through the race, so if they believe there's time in the timetable, then they could attempt to restart the race, but I'd be a little surprised if that were the case. We wait and see. So there is Finn Harrison. He is out of the car. And I can only imagine, the car is in a fairly dangerous position, I suppose, but it is on a long straight, and I can only imagine that there is a concern about fluid. You can see there is a van of some description up at the top end of the track, which perhaps is dealing with that. So the plan is to attempt a restart, by the way. So they are hoping to get the race started again, so Freddie Slater might still have a fight on his hands here. As I said, race control pretty good at buying time back as well, actually, as and when necessary. So the race was due to finish, we are ahead of time actually as well, this race was due to finish at about 20:03. It's about 10 past now, so they've got a bit of time. They've got extra time at the end of the day built in too. So okay, let's see what can be done. Fingers crossed we'll get a little bit more Ginetta Junior racing action in before the day is done. like I said, this the 5th event of the season for Ginetta Juniors. They head next to Cadwell Park for another Ginetta festival, as they had a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago at Silverstone. Not quite as intense a weekend, this one, though, just the standard 2-day format where each of the championships will have 3 races apiece. Then they go to Brands Hatch on the British GT package, and likewise it all finishes at Donington Park at season's end, where Freddie Slater will most likely have wrapped the title up already, but you never know. Stranger things have happened, I suppose. Fans waiting patiently for a restart, as hopefully it won't take too long to get the car out of the way. And I actually don't see any activity from the top end of the track there with regards to cement dust going down, so maybe it was just the dangerous position of the car that had people concerned. So the Ginetta G56 safety car will await the field, and the marshals await instructions as to where they're going to be parking the cars. Quite a lot that goes into this process. It's not as simple as just pointing the drivers vaguely in the direction of the grid slots and saying, have at it. You've got to work out what order they're going to line up in. That grid then has to be signed off by clerk of the course. It then gets passed on to the timekeepers, who will process it. Then copies of that grid are handed out to the start line marshals, who then go to work on manoeuvring the cars into the right positions. So it takes a little while, but the hope is, I believe, that we're going to get a restart. Well, they've already got the car out of the way, so I see no reason as to why we can't, well, already be gridding cars up. And in fact, they're not even going to bring the recovery truck back around the circuit. They're going to reverse it behind the barriers and use the back entrance to the paddock to get it back out of the way. Now, there is the grid sheet. So the grid sheet has been printed out. It's been handed over to the start line marshals, and now they will go to work getting everyone in the correct position. Should be more or less as the order is on the left-hand side of your screen. But of course, the other decision that has to be made is how long the restart will be over. 5 or 6 minutes, I would have thought. But still awaiting news, official news anyway, on what that will be. So they do now start regridding them. Freddie Slater pulls onto pole position, Chase Fernandez alongside, and all of a sudden we've got a very different dynamic to this race, because it was all about Chase Fernandez trying to catch Freddie Slater, whereas now he's had the catching done for him. Peter Daly there, race director for British GT, watching on. And indeed instructing Freddie Slater that he's not quite within his grid slot there on the pole position. Yeah, we're now going to have a real battle, I think, because Chase Fernandez knows he's got the pace to go after Freddie Slater. He might be the only driver, apart from maybe Reza Samarathan, this weekend, who can beat Freddie Slater. So he's going to go for it, and if he can make a good start and get in the right position through the first few corners, then that is the thing to do. It's tempting, if you get a good start from the outside of row 1, to try and go round the outside at the first corner, but we've not really seen that work too well for many people, unless you really kind of clear the pole car before you get to Rich's, that first corner. It doesn't tend to work out, that move, so in some ways what you want to do is drop in line behind the leader and then have a go at them into the hairpin up the inside, but that becomes very difficult to do because you've got a pack of other Ginetta G40s lined up behind you waiting to fill that gap. So Fernandez in a difficult position really on the outside line. 1 minute board is, or 1 minute shown on the LED starting gantry. No news yet on how long this restart's going to be. Oh, it's 7 minutes. 7 minutes. It just flashed up on the timing screen. So 7-minute restart after, of course, a green flag lap. So for the second time in this race, the Ginetta G56 safety car leads them around, and it's going to be Freddie Slater on pole. It's going to be Chase Fernandez alongside him. Mikey Porter will be third. Charlie Hart will be fourth. And then Reza Samarathan fifth, I believe. maybe a couple of changes after that. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, Hugo Schwartz 6th, Mackenzie Douglas 7th, then Tom Spragg 8th. So yes, it is the order that we had it, I think, on that timing tower. And of course, for some of those who had dramas earlier on, Holly Mile, Henry Jocelyn, Felix Livesey as well have been off the road, hadn't he, once or twice. They get to catch back up and have another go at this. So it'll be exciting to see what happens here. Youngsters, many of whom have come through the world of karting, are going to do battle again around the 3 mile, 2.96 mile to be precise, Snetterton 300 circuit. Ginetta also announcing recently that they're going to be launching a sim racing competition, which, if you're interested in getting onto the Ginetta racing ladder, might be the thing for you to do, because the winner of that sim racing championship gets free entry into the Ginetta Scholarship, which is something that Chase Fernandez won the day after his 14th birthday, and he is the current scholar, 14 years of age, and if you want to follow in his footsteps, then you need to go and find out all the information about the sim racing competition, and there will be a championship taking place, I believe, from about August later on this year on weeknights. So if you're at home and you are a bit of a keen sim racer, then that could be your opening to get yourself into the Ginetta Scholarship, and from there the future is a very, very bright place, because we've seen so many great drivers coming through this particular championship.
The rev service broke up. Anyway, that's a different world away from what
Freddie
we're watching
Slater
now.
is going to be
For
sure a driver that we see racing for many a year. A future in GT racing perhaps is inevitable for this young man. Go up and down the grid of the British GT Championship, almost everyone has either competed in Ginettas, has coached Ginetta drivers, or is no more than one degree of separation from someone who's done one of those things. It's really part of the bedrock of British motor racing these days, the Ginetta racing family. Great now to have all of the championships together on the British GT package, and all together in one place, so that teams who run cars across the various championships can do so without having to split their resources and their team members across 2 or 3 different racetracks on any given weekend. So it's definitely made life a lot easier for the teams. There you can see, still got this breeze sort of blowing across the Snetterton circuit. It's a tailwind down the pit straight, which means it's a headwind down the back straight. That really aids the power of the slipstream down the Bentley straight. And with that breeze comes slightly cooler ambient temperatures, and this threat, perhaps, of some rain. I think we should be okay for this race, but who knows, a bit later in the day, you may well see 1 or 2 sprinkles. Had a couple yesterday afternoon in the Ginetta GT Championship race, I think it was, wasn't it? Right then, 7 minutes on the clock. Race restart for the Michelin Ginetta Junior Championship. Their 3rd race of the weekend gets back underway with Freddie Slater from pole position and Chase Fernandez making a good start from the outside of row 1. As we've seen a few times, bit of a tangle in the background. Off onto the grass goes Luca Hopkinson after a bit of leaning between himself and Freddie Allen, but they both managed to gather it together. Fernandez trying to go toe-to-toe with Slater around the outside of Riches. He's not going to do it, and this was the danger. You see, you get hung out to dry, and now Mikey Porter comes up the inside. This is exactly what happened to Chase at the start of the last race, and it might happen again now in race number 3. Charlie Hart up the inside as well, gets into Porter and goes past the pair of them. That was pretty aggressive stuff from Charlie, but he makes his way into 2nd position. The dust kicked up in the background, and Freddie Slater rubs his hands with glee, because this is exactly what he wanted to see in his mirrors. Just as on the original start, they're all so busy beating each other up that they forget about Freddie, and they allow him to make a bit of a break. Hugo Schwartz on the grass there, coming down the hill. Mikey Porter trying to get to the inside of Charlie Hart. They make a little bit of contact down the hill. Charlie just got the door closed, but I think there was a bit of cooperation there from Mikey to make sure that Charlie didn't get turned around. Oh, and that's Fernandez. Fernandez with a snap of oversteer out of Agostini. He'd already lost a couple of more positions. Reza Samurathan had gone through, and I think maybe Hugo Schwartz had as well, but Chase Fernandez with a big moment there. Perhaps the pressures had dipped a little bit thanks to the red flag procedure, and just didn't have the traction coming off the Agostini hairpin. So another race that has unfortunately got away from him. But Freddie Slater getting away from the field. Charlie Hart second, Porter third, Smurthen fourth. Schwarzer there, the 33 car in fifth, ahead of Mackenzie Douglas sixth. Down the back straight they go. Palmowski gained a few places out of that as well. I think she's seventh as they head towards the end of the back straight. Charlie Hart now has two R-Racing cars behind him. That's Luke Hopkinson on the grass again for the second time on this opening lap. And, you know, I think he might have been battling with Freddie Allen again then. Certainly Freddie was in the vicinity, the man with whom he tangled on the start line. There goes Chase Fernandez then. All of those places lost and not a lot of time to try and regain them now. Just 5 minutes left on the clock. So time for a couple more laps, but it's going to be a struggle for him to get much further up the road, unfortunately. Down to the last turn then. Charlie Hart wriggles his way into Murray's corner. Mikey Porter in behind. Now here's the replay. It was Freddie Allen. It's exactly the same thing that happened on the start-finish line. They just lean on each other, completely unnecessary. There's so much space down the Bentley straight. If there's already a car on the inside of you, then there's no point squeezing it onto the grass. That could have been a huge crash at the fastest part of the track. Anyway, Mikey Porter up the inside of Charlie Hart. This is more like it. Good clean racing. Wait for it. Nearly a bit of contact, but Reza Smurthen gets cleanly up the inside of Charlie Hart. And that's Felix Livesey on the grass in the background. Hugo Schwarzer now attacks his teammate Charlie Hart into the Wilson hairpin. And I think he might go through, might he? Oh, they're side by side still, and of course the next few corners are all left-handers. So Charlie should have the advantage, but we've seen a few round the outside passes here, and against a teammate, Hugo Schwarzer might feel a bit more confident in doing that, and confident in the fact that he'll be left some space, which he was. Charlie Hart still has the inside line, though, for the next corner. And he still contests the position. Schwarzer this time does get squeezed a bit over the curb, and now Mackenzie Douglas tries to get up the inside. No dice, can't quite get the overlap into Hamilton. So Freddie Slater then, best part of 2 seconds up the road already. Mikey Porter second, Reza Smurthen third, Hugo Schwarzer in fourth position. Well, except he's not now, is he? Charlie Hart's gone through. So Smurthen down to fifth. Schwarzer down to fifth. Behind his teammate again, Mackenzie Douglas in line behind. Bentley straight, slipstream time. Who's going to make a move into the braking zone here? Freddie Slater doesn't really have to worry about what's going on behind him, but Mikey Porter and Reza Smurthen working together to try and get away from the chasing pack. We've ended up with those same three drivers at the front of this race that we had at the front of the race yesterday as well. The three R-Racing cars of Freddie Slater, Mikey Porter and Reza Smurthen. They finished in a slightly different order. Smurthen was second, and well, actually in the end it was, that's Harry Mossoff again down at the Brundle and Nelson sequence of corners. Of course, Mikey Porter did eventually fall off the podium in that opening race of the weekend, but he ran inside the top three with his teammates until really the closing stages. Now holds second position. Freddie Slater then across the line. Second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th and 11th, all in one long line. 10 Ginetta Juniors beginning their final lap of this restarted race. It's going to be a 3-lap restart. The lead gap 2.1 seconds. The battling going on behind as Chase Fernandez puts the pressure to Alicia Palmowski. Palmowski defending that inside line. She's into 7th place, the highest she's been all weekend so far. Fernandez looks to try and go the long way round at the hairpin. Has to watch out because Tom Spragg is in behind and in close company. I thought I heard a screeching of tyres. It was from Freddie Allen, who's been off again. Now, let's hope that that was not a third collision with Luca Hopkinson. They were side by side going into turn one, I believe. So I think maybe we can deduce that they did come to blows again. We'll wait and see if there's any video evidence to support that theory. Chase Fernandez and Alicia Palmowski battling away through Agostini. Defensive driving from Palmowski. It's just allowing that group ahead to start pulling away. What weekend of what could have been really for Chase Fernandez here. He's been so close to having some really good results. In the end, it looks like a third place yesterday is going to be the best that he has to take away from this. Through Williams onto the Bentley straight for the last time they go. Alicia Palmowski with the advantage in this group, the advantage in the race held by Freddie Slater. And It's going to be win number 14 now, isn't it? Having broken the record, the question is now, what new record can he set? We've still got, after this one, another 9 races that he could potentially win. Chase Fernandez up the inside of Palmovsky, I think has got that move made now, whilst Henry Jocelyn and Tom Spragg are getting friendly again, the two teammates there from Prep Tech UK. And that's just opened the door for Adu Robinson to come through as well. So, and then leans on Spragg through the entry to Coram. Towards the last corner they come though, and our racing, I think, are about to be celebrating a 1-2-3 finish here in the third and final Michelin Ginetta Junior race of the weekend. Chase Fernandez is off the road in the background, but Freddie Slater is going to come through to claim the race victory. It is his 14th win of the season, and well, you'd think he'd be used to it by now. You'd think the team would be used to it by now, but they still celebrate as if it was his first. A little bit more door banging now for Luca Hopkins, and this time with Felix Livesey, and that's going to be almost a dead heat at the line. The timing screen says that Livesey got it by 25 thousandths of a second, which will only further improve Luca Hopkinson's mood. I am intrigued to know what happened between Hopkinson and Allen at the end of the pit straight that time around. Anyway, 1-2-3 finish for our racing. Fantastic result for them, and that will further extend now what's becoming an ever more healthy points lead in the Teams Championship. And I guess, actually, in a way, the next question that Freddie Slater needs to be asking is how early can he win this championship? Can he win it and then maybe have time to go and race in something else before the end of the season? I've been saying that he's got aspirations upon being a GT driver, but actually I think it's single-seaters maybe where his future lies, if you ask him. So, if he can win the championship early, who knows, there might be opportunities to go and do some testing in single-seaters before next season. Freddie Slater with another win, 14th of the season, and this time he does head home. A 1-2-3 finish for our racing, with Mikey Porter second and Reza Samurathan in third. Charlie Hart then came home in fourth ahead of Hugo Sforza, Mackenzie Douglas sixth, Alicia Palmovsky seventh, and Chase Fernandez, after going off at that final corner, finishing only in eighth. Ninth for Henry Jocelyn, 10th Adu Robinson, 11th Tom Spragg, 12th for Felix Livesey, 13th Luca Hopkinson, 14th Holly Mile, Harry Moss was 15th, and Freddie Allen, after at least 2, and I suspect 3 tangles with Luca Hopkinson, ending up 16th and last. So that's how the field looked at the end of their final race of the weekend. Cadwell Park beckons now for all 3 of our Ginetta Championships. We've got 2 more Ginetta races, though, still to come today from the GT Championship and Ginetta GT Academy as well. Well, third and final race for the Michelin Ginetta Junior Championship. Took a little while to get done. It was a great start by, on the outside of row 1, Mikey Porter to get his nose ahead of Freddie Slater into turn 1, but as we've seen so often this weekend, wasn't good enough to get him into the lead. The outside, not the place to be, and Slater was able to hold on to the early advantage. Finn Harrison was there in third, whilst Chase Fernandez were making some great moves around the outside, having lost positions at the end of the previous race. Got stuck into the battle for the lower podium places. Finn Harrison there on the defence, whilst further back the Prep Tech UK drivers were getting up close and personal with each other, and Henry Jocelyn, in trying to stay off his teammate Tom Spragg, had a rotation at the hairpin. Then disaster for Finn Harrison, the Assetto racing car expiring on the back straight. The car was in a dangerous position, so the red flag was thrown. On the race restart, which took place over 3 laps, there was contact between Luca Hopkinson and Freddie Allen at the back of the pack, and despite it only being a 3-lap restart, they would have numerous other altercations before the checkered flag eventually waved. At the front, it was Freddie Slater who held on to the advantage again from Mikey Porter, but Charlie Hart, with a braille pass up the inside of Porter and Fernandez at the hairpin, moved into second place. Didn't stay there for long though. Mikey Porter got back on the inside at Riches, brought with him his teammate Reza Samurathan, and from there it was pretty much as easy as it gets for our racing. Freddie Slater leading home a 1-2-3 finish for the team, and Freddie claiming himself a 14th race victory of the season from 18 races held so far. Some more good racing though from Ginetta Juniors, who now head to Cadwell Park, where Freddie Slater looks to further solidify his championship lead.